Sponsored by Taylor Freelance, Rainier Ballistics, Hodgson Powders, and JPL Precision.
Hey everybody, I thought I'd show a neat little gadget here called the MOJO pick stick. This can be, well, for those of you who are into shot shell reloading and want to pick up a lot of empty holes that are, say, out in the trap field or out in grass, or even for people who go hunting, and for those of you like duck hunters or geese hunters or whatever, where you're in a blind and you do a lot of shooting and you get a lot of holes laying around and you want to clean them up, and or they get into water, which is typically what happens when you're out duck hunting, and you're trying to clean up of it yourself. You know what kind of a pain that can be, especially if they're in water. There are various different magnetic devices that are out there to pick up holes, and I've seen some of them like where it's on a telescopic rod, where it's like a small magnet in the end. I've seen other ones that are a kind of a round disc type magnet. You can get them from Harbor Freight. I've seen those used for trying to pick up holes, but the problem is that those two, the small like magnet at the end of a extension, telescopic extension, usually picks up about 1 or 2 holes. The larger magnets that you get from Harbor Freight will pick up maybe 5 or 6. They're not real good. You kind of like have to kind of like hover it over the ground to pick them up. This device, the MOJO pick stick, has a very, very powerful magnet in it that resides right about at this end of the stick. It's telescopic in that you can flip this and extend it out to, they recommend about this point here, there's a line here about how far you should go. So it gives you good extension to reach into locations that may be well beyond your reach. Where I primarily use this is at the club when we are doing cleanup at the end of the day, particularly out on the sporting clays side of things, where we're shooting out in where there's bushes or grass or brush or whatnot around. And people with autoloaders, those things will tend to throw holes in various directions, and sometimes down deep inside of bushes. And it's just nice to go in there and clean the range up. So this works out really well in that, because of the fact that you can kind of probe and push into the bushes and whack and push the bushes back and stuff like that. You can use it from that standpoint of just manipulating things, but also from the standpoint with the powerful magnet in the end of it, it latches onto things pretty good. In fact, there's been many times where you're pushing around the bush and you hear the infamous click as a round or a hole jumps onto it. It works really well for steel-based holes, which is primarily a lot of the stuff that you're seeing these days. I would say the exception to the rule now seems to be the original Winchester AA and the Remington STS, which actually has a brass head on it. But pretty much everything else that you're seeing out there has a steel case. Also, we use it, or I've had people actually borrow it for going and cleaning up the trap range, where you're cleaning up on concrete. In my opinion, it actually works better on grass than it does on concrete, only from the standpoint on concrete is that with a hard surface, and you'll see this demonstrated, but you can't go down, where in grass you can kind of stick it in, and because of the fact that the magnet goes up higher here, with concrete, literally the holes are grabbing right onto the end part here, are not really getting further up on the shaft here where the rest of the magnet exists. Just to give you an idea of how powerful this is here, I've got a bucket full of shotgun shells, and I'm just going to cram this thing in here and push it in, and we'll see what we come up with. So that's probably around 20-25 holes right there, give or take. You can see, I'm going to see how far up that magnet goes. So the magnet literally goes right to here. After this point here, I've got nothing, but right there was where the edge of the magnet is. So for those of you who are interested in just making it easier, don't want to bend over to pick up holes, you want to keep things clean, I would highly recommend getting one of these. You can actually get them at Cabela's and or Amazon for about $35 to $40, give or take. So yeah, it's a little bit pricey, but they do work out very well. And kind of makes things nice to just make the whole entire range cleanup a lot easier. So I would recommend, if that's something that you're interested in or whatever, go out and get one. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Everybody, welcome back to Power Factor. Thought I'd take a few minutes here and answer some viewer email questions that we've received here recently. I'm going to start with one here by Mike S. And he was asked, actually, Larry, Rick, and Doug about what their training regimens are. But since I'm not really doing pistol shooting anymore, he asked me what my journey was to making master. So I thought I'd take a few minutes here and talk about that because I don't really think I've discussed that much my whole entire path here in the past, but it's fairly short and complete. I started out in D class and initially started shooting with only using one eye open, shutting my left eye. And after a bit, I realized that from my experience in bird hunting and shotgun shooting that you have much better depth perception and much better shooting that if you shoot with both eyes open. But when it comes to pistol shooting or rifle shooting, that can be kind of a challenge because you see doubles of everything. So it's kind of a matter of training your mind to be able to deal with that. And I knew that to make that step, that initial step of learning to shoot with both eyes open, that I would probably be going backwards before I would be going forwards. But I kept on telling myself, this is perfectly normal. Don't get frustrated by it. Stick with it because the benefits down the road are really going to be beneficial. So that's what I did. I started shooting initially with both eyes open. It really did pay off. I actually, for about a month, I shot like crap, but initially, kind of got it straightened out. And went through D class, went through C class, and then eventually landed in B and kind of hit a plateau in B class. And it's kind of interesting because I probably was in B class for, I'm guessing, about 2 years. And I got to the top end of B class and I never would really go forward, but I wouldn't really go backwards. No matter what I did, I kind of stayed in that upper part of B class. So again, I kind of looked and started evaluating my shooting and figuring out, what I could do, what was the next step. I realized I needed to do something to get out because I wasn't getting any better. So I read a interview by Brian Enos about his early days of shooting with Rob Latham, with the two of them shooting. And he made the statement that went along the lines something like, he said that Rob suddenly started out shooting everybody in their group. And what he did is he started using a target focus rather than a sight focus. In other words, he started looking at the target instead of looking at his sights. I thought, wow, this is really interesting, and I have a lot of respect for Rob, as a lot of us do. So I thought, well, maybe I'm going to start trying to explore that. So that's what I did. I shifted my shooting technique from being, your traditional front sight type of a shooter to actually now looking through the sights at the targets. And to reinforce this, I started doing a lot of dry fire at home. So I set up in my family room at a distance of about 10 yards. I'd stand in my kitchen and put my targets at the end of my family room, which ended up being about 10 to 12 yards. I put 3 of them up and I just started working on drills based, just acquiring the target, moving from target to target to target. I had 3. Sometimes I'd stick up one in the corner or one on the side just to kind of simulate some movement. But I worked on doing dry fire and reload practice and trigger press and everything like that for quite a while. Again, about 3 to 4 nights a week. And then on weekends, I would go out and reinforce it by shooting maybe 200 to 300 rounds of practice on Saturday, and then going out and shooting a match on Sunday for another 150 rounds or so. And would do that typically about 3 weekends out of each month, took 1 weekend off. And that helped out a lot. I went from B class straight through A class in about 9 months and into master. And I did this in limited 10, shooting actually a single stack back then, using 10-round magazines, and made it into master in about 9 months. And along that way also, I learned to start calling your shots, which is also really important for me that I learned that technique. So that basically is my journey. I switched from basically being a one-eyed shooter to a two-eyed shooter. That was, a significant step. And then from a two-eyed shooter looking at the front sight to a two-eyed shooter looking at the target. And that was a huge step combined with a lot of dry fire practice. And live fire, and then also learning to call your shots, and that's basically how I made master. Then I started shooting limited, and started out in A class and limited. And I think it took just a few months or whatever before I actually got my classification into master. I'm going to say again, maybe 6 to 9 months or so in limited when I did that. When I finally quit pistol shooting, I was a couple percentage points from grandmaster. I think it was like 2 or 3 percentage points. It was about a 92 or 93. I think I peaked at about 93 something or other. I would think when I finished off, I was about 92. So a little bit away from grandmaster, but to be honest, I just didn't have that burning drive, if you want to call it, to go grandmaster, because I realized to do that really required a significant investment in time and money to do that, and I just didn't have it. So next question is from Bill M about shotgun cleaning, and he was asking how often do I do a complete teardown of the receiver on my Beretta for cleaning. And I usually do it about every year. I try to make a point of doing a complete teardown every year, and it so happens that this is actually the time that I do it. I just took it apart today and did a complete teardown and cleaned it, and we'll show you some pictures here of the before and after. In fact, why don't we throw the before up here, and you can see what the receiver looks like. And you can see it's not too bad. There's a significant amount of dirt, and you can kind of see kind of grease or I would say excessive amount of grease. I think I put actually too much grease on that hinge pin. But it's not too bad. And now we'll throw up the after pictures here, and you can see what the receiver looks like now that it's all nice and cleaned up. I have not re-oiled it or re-greased it at this point. You can see also have removed the hammer springs to get better access to cleaning it. But basically, I try to do it about once a year, and generally speaking, looking at the action here, it's not too bad. It wasn't as bad as what I was expecting it to possibly be. I've shot a couple NSCA shoots in the rain here recently. I absolutely detest shooting in the rain. I won't go out and practice in the rain, but it just turns out the 2 recent NSCA shoots at the club have been in the rain, and I kind of felt obligated to shoot those since I'm also involved in match setup and everything. So one of the kind of things that was driving my, or I should say accelerating my taking the gun apart, was about 2 weeks ago I was out shooting skeet with John and a couple of the other guys, and I was having a really good run. In fact, I was up to station 5 clean, hadn't missed any birds. I would say one of my nemesis stations on skeet, I'm sorry, not 5, 6. Nemesis stations on skeet is station 6, where you have your doubles, your low house bird and your high house bird. And my problem is I always come off that low house bird too quick trying to get on the high house bird. And recently down at Renton, where we shoot, the light is really, really poor. It's clear, but the sun is very low coming through trees, and you get this like strobe effect and shadows and everything, and it's really tough to see the targets. So that makes it even more difficult on station 6 on the low outgoing bird and the high incoming bird, especially the high incoming bird, because it's really tough to see. So I called pull, I hit the low outgoing bird and got onto the high bird, pulled the trigger, gun went click, nothing happened, stood there for about 30 seconds or so waiting for basically a hang fire or anything like that, opened the gun up and saw a very, very small mark on the primer. And I thought, that hasn't happened here at all recently. So at that point, I was kind of like wondering, well, did my gun just break? Is it just, maybe crap in the firing pin or whatever? So I pulled the shells out, switched them, put that barely marked one in the low barrel, put the other round in the top barrel, called pull again, hit the low outgoing bird, and at that point I'm thinking, God, I hope the gun goes off. And it did, but because of the fact that I was thinking about, God, I hope the gun goes off, I ended up taking a little bit too much time and didn't see the high house bird and missed it, and that ended up costing me a perfect round. I shot 24 that time, so that was kind of frustrating. But the next round I went out and shot a perfect 25, so I kind of redeemed myself. But it's still, like, actually would have shot 50 straight if I hit that stupid bird if it wasn't for the gun. So I decided, well, probably because of that, I probably ought to pull the gun apart and make sure everything looks good and everything. So that kind of accelerated my my gun cleaning this year. I did it probably this time last year. Last year at this time, I was still in the recovery mode from the spine surgery and couldn't shoot. So I thought, well, that'd be a good time to clean the gun. So it's really about an annual job for me. I try to do it, once a year or so, give or take a few months. Usually more take than give. So last question here. Why don't we take this one? David R. asked me, do you ever reload reclaim shot? And the answer is no, and I never will. I absolutely detest reclaim shot, putting it through I'm going to say a quality shotgun or something that you're spending a significant amount of money on. I mean, this to me is like going out and buying a Ferrari and then going out and buying the cheapest gas, like 85 octane that you can put into it just to try to save a buck. Yeah, reclaim shot, you'll find it maybe for say $8 to $10 a bag less than what you would pay for virgin shot. But there's reclaim shot and then there's reclaim shot. And yes, you may find some reclaim shot that's good, but often on reclaim shot, depending on how it's processed, you're going to find steel pellets in there. So you got to go through it with a magnet to get the steel pellets out. Then you may find some really small rocks and crap like that. So you got to sift it to try to get rid of that. Then you may have to go and re-graphite the shot so it flows smoothly. And then you're also going to be looking at either deformed pellets or a combination of different pellets where you may have, 7s, 8s, 9s. Hopefully nobody's throwing any 6 in there or anything like that. And, it may work for, close in game stuff where you may be looking at maybe 16-yard trap or skeet or something like that, where it might work out for you. But I just do not want to risk putting any rocks or steel or anything like that down the barrel of my Beretta. If you had a beater gun or whatever that you really didn't care, or if your barrel replacement was maybe a couple $100, and you'd save $8 to $10 a bag, barrel's $200, let's say in the neighborhood of that, 10 bags a shot, and you're kind of self-insuring yourself. Or self-insuring your barrel so that if you do destroy it, you save money up front, you can go out and buy a new one. But in the case of my Beretta, you're looking at probably over $1,000, maybe even more than that for a set of barrels in that thing. And then you got to get them fitted and everything. And to me, it's just not worth going out and taking the risk on reclaimed shot. So that's my answer on reclaimed. I will not shoot it. I never will shoot it. And you may choose to do otherwise, but I have seen pictures of barrels that have been destroyed by reclaim shot, and boy, once you see that, it really makes you think twice before even entertaining that thought of going with that. So since day one on my guns, my Browning or my Beretta, I just do not do it. It's not worth the risk. So okay, thanks for the questions. Keep them coming in, and we'll answer some more here in the future. And until next time, break them all.